Hello Footy Medi Watchers and welcome to the vidcast for the Defenders edition of the AFL Dream Team Diaries this year. What we're going to have a look at is look at the strategies for how you can set up your Dream Team. After analysing all the players, I've kind of come up with a setup that I think offers the most value in the defensive positions. And then we'll have a look at the best players that are available. It's quite extensive, but I'll quickly go through the key players that I think might make up a really good team and offer you good value this season, and who might not offer the same value as they have in previous years. So this season I'm looking at four premiums. Now these, after analysing the best players in the defensive positions, the premiums I've probably most keen on are probably not the very top end defenders that have been very good in the past. Maybe the slightly next rung of premiums down. Maybe the younger players who are now beginning to push up. And I think there's a few of them there that are going to have some good breakout years. I've chosen one mid-price player. I've called them foot soldiers. Some of them are foot soldiers. Some of them are maybe players coming back from injury, or more mature players, or second year, third year players who are still on the way up. And then three rookies. Although rookies this season is a bit open for interpretation, as there are some older rookies that are available that could help a lot of players this year. So let's look at some players. First of all, we'll have a go through some premiums. Now, the top of the range player is Brendan Goddard this year, who's obviously moved to Essendon. He's also a dual position player mid. Not sure about Brendan Goddard. He's usually a lock in my team every year, but if he does play more midfield, I think he'll get a bit more of a heavy tag in the midfield. And I think I actually think he'd be more likely to sit off half-back, and that a player like Dyson Heppel might play more in the midfield and thus increase his numbers this year. So I think whilst Brendan Goddard, I don't think his numbers will go down much. I think with him going to Essendon, that a player like Dyson Heppel may actually improve their numbers as a consequence of him being there. So I'm going to skip Brendan Goddard this season just because I think there's more value slightly down the rung a bit. Next player is Heath Scotland. He's going to be missing the first couple of weeks of the season after an altercation at a pub. So he's missed the entire pre-season. I think they've given him a 2-match suspension in the proper season from memory. So he might be one. If you're looking at him, he is 32, maybe even 33 this season, and he did have a couple of calf niggles last year. So I'm going to go past him as well. Onto the next generation of defenders, which is Jack Grimes. He had a good year last year and was rated the third best defender, and I think he's going to improve this year as Melbourne improve. So keep him on your radar. Bryce Gibbs, another one under Mick Malthouse, who's also dual position. And I think he's going to be the new Brendan Goddard type this year. He'll get much bigger numbers as he moves into the midfield and gets more ball. He also might be value as Supercoach this season because his contested numbers have gone up greatly in the NAB Cups thus far. So Grimes and Gibbs are probably two really good options as starting points this season, and they're a little bit cheaper than the very top end ones. You might save yourself 50 grand, which you can use elsewhere. Next player is Beau Waters from West Coast. Good solid season last year again. Can get massive numbers all of a sudden. You might be sitting there looking at 30 or 40 at half time in a game or something, and then he comes out in the third quarter and gets 60 points or something and just racks up massive possessions. And obviously always got injury worries with Beau Waters just because of the way he plays his footy. So just keep that in mind. But I think at 472 he might be slightly overpriced as a premium starting defender. I'd expect him to go down a little bit. So he might be one to upgrade to a bit later on in the season. Next couple are Birchall. With Suckling going down, Birchall might play more of a sweeping role across halfback, and his numbers might go up. When he first started, he did have some massive games off halfback, racking up like 40 possessions a few times, so he might be one at 455 that might be one that bobs up this year. But have a look at his NAB Cup game this week on NAB Cup Grand Final week and see how he goes, and have a review of his pre-season with the Fantasy Freako newsletter. And Dyson Heppel, as mentioned before, I think he's going to have a big year in the midfield. I think Brendan Goddard across halfback will afford more time for Dyson Heppel in the midfield. And I think at 439 that Dyson Heppel will be a steal, and he's also a dual position player, which helps. Next couple are Duffield and Hanley. I expect Duffield to go up, and his price is probably about right, but I'm wary on both these two at that price point. I think they've both got potential to drop, and they may well be that kind of lower end premium that you might be able to upgrade to a bit later on in the season, maybe around week 8 or 9. Michael Johnson. I was a big fan of Michael Johnson for a few years, and I had him in my team when he was a bit rubbish. Then last year I jumped off him. I said I'm not going to go to it again. He started playing good footy under Ross Lyon and getting that cheap footy across halfback in the kind of Sam Fisher role as he played at St Kilda, getting plenty of footy and helping to link up play, but he's got pretty poor skills, so it's Supercoach probably not a great one. He might be a good option that not many people would take in the draft comps, so keep that in mind, but no for Michael Johnson for me this year. Heath Shaw is probably underpriced at 422, but he can have some shockers here and there if he gets tagged off halfback. Doesn't react too well to a tag, in my opinion anyway. So 422, probably slightly overpriced, I think. And depending on his form early on, could go up or down, but maybe put on a watch list. And if he has a few poorish games early on, his price should go down, and then he might be one worth snapping up. Hamish Hartlett is another one of the young players at 421. I think is well worth the risk. He has had injury problems. But when you're looking at Grimes and Gibbs and Heppel and Hartlett, I think they're the next generation of defenders to look at AFL Fantasy. Jed Acock, injuries, not sure about Jed Acock. I think he may be on the downward slide a bit, so at 418, I'm going to say no, and he can also have some shockers where he only gets 30 or 40 here and there. But by the same token, he can get big scores as well, but I'm not on the Jed Acock bus this season. Corey Enright, probably tailing off in his career. Still a good solid player, but the dream team, I'm going to skip him this year. Greg Broughton, a lot of people have got him as a lock at 408,000. I've never been a big Greg Broughton fan. He is a dual position player, defender forward, so different from the defender mids elsewhere. But he hasn't been in scintillating form for Gold Coast in the pre-season, and I can't see why that would happen in the real season. So he might be one worth going with as an upgrade, maybe a bit later. But yeah, I'm not a Greg Broughton fan really, so a no for me. And Brent Riley, probably underpriced at 407. He's a really good player, really blossomed last year at Adelaide. So keep an eye on him, although I don't think Adelaide are going to have a great year this year. When I say great year, that's in comparison to last year. I think they'll finish in the bottom half of the 8. But a very good player, Brent Riley, and at that price, he's probably a better option than Greg Broughton. So on to the foot soldiers, this is the mid-price players. Got Hooley and Dempsey. Probably wouldn't go for Hooley, but Courtney Dempsey's one at 396, who's underpriced. And now I say he's underpriced because if you do a little bit of research into some players and look at what they scored last year, Courtney Dempsey had a game where he did his hamstring and he only scored 6, which brought down his average score and of course brought down his price this season. So he's probably worth an extra 16, maybe 20 grand there, which puts him up probably into the bottom end of the premium. So at 396, he might be well worth a look at. And watching him in the Richmond-Essendon game the other week, he looks in good nick. So let's have a look at some of the others here that I've grouped together. Brent Guerra, he could be another Hawthorn player that gets that Matt Suckling role, sweeping across half-back, which could release him a bit. So he could be worth value. Brian Lake at 392, not as much value as last season coming back from injury, so I'm going to give him a miss. Shannon Hearn, not a great dream teamer sometimes. Last year he had a good season, but he can go missing, so I'm going to skip him. Sean Dempster had a great season last year. Whether or not that carries on to this year, he's probably likely to drop off a bit, so probably not. Daniel Pearce is a player that a lot of people are keen on this year. I'm not. I don't think Daniel Pearce is any good, to be honest. Just an average footballer. He is a dual position though, so he's a good option, but at 376, no. Harry Taylor, good solid player. He might be one if you're in the middle of the season, depending on where your salary cap's at, you might be able to squeeze him in as an upgrade on a rookie or something. Very good, consistent, maybe 70s, 80s, 90s across the defence. So, but not as a starting player, I don't think. Jared Brennan, who knows? Could do anything. Every year they say he's going to knuckle down and become the player that we all think he could be. But the clock's ticking towards the end of his career now, so I'm going to say no. And Nick Malcheski, up one year, down the other, all over the shop. I'm going to give him a miss. Sean Burgoyne, into his 30s now. I'm going to give him a miss as well, and can consistently get 60s and 70s as well. So not a massive ball winner. Probably better in Supercoach than Dream Team. But he may well do well as a draft pick if you're going to use that category scoring system in Ultimate Footy, as he does have good disposal and efficiencies, so keep that in mind for players like that. The next set of players, Fisher I think is on the tail end of his career and he's going downwards. I don't think he'll be going there. Alex Rance, he gets a lot of footy, Alex Rance, which in Dream Team is all you need. I'm not sure at 367. He might go up, but I mean, he's going to have those games where he gets next to nothing as well, when he's got specific roles on players like Buddy Franklin and stuff, where he can't get loose as much. So, but on teams without that defined key forward, he'll rack up a lot of the footy sweeping across halfback. So, 367 is a nice price, but yeah, series form goes in the first few rounds. I wouldn't have him as starting player. And Chris Newman looks like a very good value at 365. He's moved up the ground from half back into the midfield. Some people would say, oh, well, that's a bad thing because he's not getting that cheap defensive ball, but he still sweeps back there and goes back, and he's had a good pre-season. So, and he's kicking goals, which is very good for a defender. So keep that in mind. Robert Murphy, probably towards the tail end of his career, and is very inconsistent in terms of AFL Dream Team. Sometimes he does some close checking roles now, rather than that pure sweeping defender that he was a couple of years ago, so I'll give him a miss. Jack Watts, now I'm a Jack Watts fan. I like Jack Watts. I think he's going to be a great player. I remember when he first started watching him out at Coburg Oval one afternoon, watching the AFL 2s, and I don't know, I don't want to say this, but there's a little bit of James Hird sometimes about Jack Watts, if he could get his mind right. And I think across half-back he could do well this year, so 360 is probably a good price, but if he plays forward, then obviously his price is going to go down from there. He had some good games the end of last year at half-back, but yeah, he's one of those defensive forwards, so if you can maybe get a combination of Broughton and Watts, one in the forward line, one in defence, then you can add some flexibility there with some more mid-tier defenders. Thomas Bugg, everyone's love child from last year, 352. I don't think I don't think many people would go ahead with Thomas Bugg after seeing Gold Coast last year in the second year Blues. I think there will be a lot more attention paid to some of the key GWS players this year, and a lot of their tricks will be sorted out that no one had seen before. And I think it'll be a tough year for GWS this year. And Michael Hibberd, very good player, Michael Hibberd, and I think he's going to have a very good year. And 342 offers good value, I think, and there's a Lucy across half-back. Takes a few marks, good link-up player. I think Michael Hibberd does offer some value at 342. Troy Chaplin, a lot of people, especially Richmond mates, think Troy Chaplin's going to have an Ivan Merrick breakout year. Had a horrible pre-season, just not fit, not going to happen. He might be a good solid player like he was at Port this year, but he's not going to do anything without a pre-season, I don't think so. Don't expect big numbers from Troy Chaplin. And Sam Gilbert, he's lost all his form from a few years ago where he was getting some big numbers off half-back, so I don't think Sam Gilbert's going to offer too much value this year, either, especially if he moves forward. Probably not going to happen for him this year. So small foot soldiers, Josh Gibson, probably still going to get that floating defensive role. Reece Shaw could do anything, could get 40s every week, could get 110s. Depends on what role he plays. If he's got a tagging role, then he's going to get not much. If he's freewheeling off half-back and up on the wing, then he can get a lot of footy, but I don't think you could confidently pick Reece Shaw. Scotty McMahon got suspended this week, so I actually really like Scotty McMahon. I think he could develop into a really top player, but with that suspension, he's probably one of those players you might be looking at moving someone sideways with the trade you've got to use a couple of weeks in or something. So no, but I think he might do something a bit better this year, Scotty McMahon. I think he might be very much worth a look. And Heath Grundy can get a lot of loose balls and loose marks across the defensive lines for the Sydney Swans, but some weeks he can go missing as well. But at 328, probably not worth a spot at this point. James Farrelly, good player, but I don't think he's going to do much this year. Marty Clark was one everyone picked last year because he was cheap, but at 323, no thanks. Tom McDonald, I don't think Tom McDonald's a great player just purely because of his kicking. It's poor, so super coach, I'd give him a miss. But at Melbourne, depending on how Jack Watts goes and on their style of play, he could be a bit of a link man, but then again, he also could be a Simon Prestigiac Como type at Melbourne, where he's just a pure defender, so give him a miss. Jared Harbrow, 321, had lots and lots of injuries last year. 321 is cheap for Jared Harbrow if he gets back into top form, and that is a bargain, so keep that in mind. Jordan Murdoch's a good young player from Geelong. Not sure how much he played, but he is a good player. So if he gets a roll across half-back, wing, half-forward, probably not going to be a great dream team this year, I don't think, but he is one to watch. Graham Johncock, he's very much at the tail end of his career with injuries, back injuries. I don't think we'll go Graham Johncock. Chris Yarran's an interesting one, like Jared Harbrow. I think he could fall into that Leon Davis role across half-back that Mick Malthouse likes. So I think he might be the one that really pops up out of this batch, along with Jared Harbrow. So those two are ones to really keep eyes out for out of this Foot Soldiers pack. Sean Atley, great young player at North. Probably only a 20 possession a game player though, with his endurance at the moment. I think really explosive player, exciting to watch, but probably not going to be a great dream team this year. Ben Jacobs from Port, I've always liked Ben Jacobs from Port, can get a lot of the footy, 311. Probably grip him in with Harbrow and Yarran as a player that really could add value as a mid-price defender this season. Jake Batchelor, I really like Jake Batchelor as a player at Richmond at my Tigers. I think one day he might be a Joel Bowden type across halfback and get a lot of the footy. So at some point he's going to have a big breakout year. I don't think it's going to be this year, but for 2014, I think Jake Batchelor might be the type of player we're all looking at getting on. I think Brandon Ellis had a fantastic pre-season, super fit, going to move into the midfield, get more footy than last year. He will end up at a little bit over $400,000 this year, I think. So at $300,000, I don't think you can go wrong. And yeah, so there's a group of 4 on this page: Harbrow, Yaron, Jacobs, and Ellis, that all offer great value at around the $300,000 mark. Jared Rivers, knee problems. I don't think he's going to get that as much footy as Matthew Scarlett got free across halfback. I don't think he's just not as good a player as Matthew Scarlett is, and with that knee injury that he's got, never been a great dream teamer anyway. I'll give him a miss. Cam Pedersen, I thought he might play that the Anvil role that Lee Brown played across at Collingwood for when Mark Mead was there, but yeah, I don't think he's going to do too much this year at Melbourne. They've got so many ruck options and mobile options with Mitch Clark and who else did they get this year? I can't remember their names, but I look at Cam Pedersen and I see him down the pecking order behind Dawes and that, so and the big Russian. So gonna give it a miss. Ryan Less is an exciting young player at Brisbane. Not sure whether he's just that 15-16 possession kind of explosive wingman, which I think he is. So probably not going to be a great dream teamer. And Mark Bagley looked fantastic across halfback for the Bombers against the Tigers in their pre-season game. And I think from looking at reports, his pre-season's been very, very productive. So at 288, he could be a bargain, the young fella. And Stephen May is a player that I'm a big fan of at Gold Coast, and one that I think will improve greatly this year. I actually think he's one of the best Gold Coast youngsters on the entire list. So, and he's that dual position player as well, defender forward though. So, going to have to match him up with a particular type of player like Watts, but or Broughton, but yeah, definitely worth a watch. Okay, continue on with some foot trials. Luke Tapscott, don't think he's ever going to really become that great player. Jake Carlisle could be an interesting one at Essendon. Looks to be in really good form and getting a lot of footy and linking up well as a big man across the defensive lines. He will definitely go up in value. I'll be surprised if he's not edging up to 400,000 by the end of the year, so keep an eye out for him. Nathan Bock, heard a report the other day on SEN, they were talking to Guy McKenna, I think, when he's coming back from his broken leg, and they said he's changed his running gait, now he's hurt his ankle. When I hear that kind of stuff, I mean, he's not a young player anymore. 282, injury problems, coming back from a broken leg. It's at least going to take a year before he hits anything near good form, so I'm going to give Bocky a miss. Adam Kennedy, one of the good players from GWS last year. I'd expect him to sit around that price. After a great start, he kind of tailed off a bit. So I think he'd probably sit around that 60, 70 point mark, which is around about $260,000 to $300,000. So I'm going to give him a miss. Nick Subin could be a big improver. He's had some good numbers over the pre-season with Freo. 264 is cheap, but I'd like to see if he gets in that opening 22. It's a lot of competition for spots there at Freo at the moment, and I'm not sure Nick Subin's in their best 22, although he has been playing, so saying that it probably goes against my my logic there, but 264, if he keeps getting hyper numbers that he's been getting, and if he just keeps playing more, he didn't play much last season, I think he might be a little Freo bolter there. Jordan Russell, we'll see if he plays for Collingwood first. Has had one or two games where he's done alright in the pre-season. I think the first one from memory. I remember Collingwood supporters ringing up and thanking Carlton, but on SEN, but I think they'll be regretting making those phone calls. Actually, as the season wears on. Ricky Henderson at Adelaide, not a real natural footballer, so not a real AFL dream team. Ash Smith's a good young player at West Coast, just opportunity this season. Don't know whether he's going to get that much again. Andy Otten, people have been asking me about Andy Otten, and I'm like, stop thinking 4 or 5 years ago. Andy Otten's not the same player he was that year when he had that big breakout 4 or 5 years ago now. So, no, and probably won't get opportunity as well, although he did play okay in the final last year. Zach Tui at Carlton should improve this year, actually. I don't mind him as a player, but I think he's still learning to find a lot more of the footy. James Strauss had plenty of injuries at Melbourne. Could improve, but just those injuries, you never know whether he's going to play. So probably a bit of a thing. And every year I put in Richie Tambling. Just I feel sorry for the guy as a Richmond supporter, having to hear what he had to put up with as a player. So it's a little bit of a pity selection in this thing, but I still love you, Richie. So, and let's quickly go through the rookies. Ben Griffiths should play more footy this year. He's been up and down in the pre-season in terms of his possessions. But he's going to be playing, if he does play, tough competition for defensive spots at Richmond this year with Grimes, Chaplin, Batchelor and Rance, Asprey. So, whilst they're not big names, they are battling for the same spot, and they're all around the same, I won't say ability level, there's varying ability and experience there, but Ben Griffiths is in a walk-up start as a defender, where he's been trained, but I think he's improving, and he's a 200 centimetre guy who can run like the wind and great below his feet, and probably the best kick at the club, probably the quickest guy at the club. So I expect that 167 to be around 300,000 by the end of the year, so he could be a cash cow if used him. More rookies here: Nick Vlastone, Flostone, however you want to say it. He's had a great pre-season, and if you're going to pick him as a rookie, you've got no problems. Dave Asprey injured his foot again. He's in a moon boot, so he's going to miss a few weeks of footy, so skip past him. Brent Staker's tweaked his knee, so he's probably going to miss the first couple of rounds of the season, I think. But he might be a sideways trade in the first few weeks of that price. Never been a really great dream teamer, but if you're going to have a cheap player on your bench that you know is definitely in Brisbane's best 22, then he's definitely worth a look. The next two, Pitt and Pittard, good young players at Fremantle and Port, but very light on in their frames, but can get footy, so as they develop over the next 1 or 2 seasons, definitely worth watching. Brett Goods, if he gets promoted to the Doggies main list, should be a lock for most players. He's been one of their best players in the pre-season. Sam Doherty looks like he's moved into Brisbane's best 22 after not getting a look in last year for various reasons, injury and form relating to the injuries. So, good player, can find the footy, very cheap as well. Lewis Stevenson, one of Port's trade players. Yeah, he's been okay, I guess. 108. Never played at West Coast. Not really that keen, but if he's going to play in round 1, then he's worth having a look at. Especially at Port, who are looking to give younger players some opportunities. Dean Turlick at Melbourne. Been playing in the pre-season, looking alright. Will he get in the best 22 in round 1? Questionable. Although he's been playing in the pre-season, so why wouldn't he? But he's on the borderline of job security there, so. But as a mature age player, you'd think he'd probably get a chance, actually. But, I mean, he could be another Tom Couch from last year as well. And Sam Colquhoun has been looking good at Port in the pre-season. young player who could find a lot of footy in the juniors. So he might be worth a look at. Also dual position, which is very handy. Maybe put him in as a midfielder actually, so you could swap out the likes of Gibbs and stuff to your midfield if you need to. Nathan Wright got big reps down at St Kilda on him. I actually think Scott Watters might be in love with Nathan Wright, so I think he might play a bit of footy. So looking at the possible lineup, I'm looking at something like this: Grimes, Gibbs, Heppel, and Harlett as the premiums, which might surprise a few. No Goddard and Scotland stuff there. Yaron is my foot soldier, although there are lots of options as I discussed earlier there. And the rookies, I'm looking at Goods, Doherty, and Turlick at the moment, with probably Turlick the one that's probably on the edge of not sure what to do with him. Although Goods, Boston would be also a great rookie to have in there, depending on the amount of salary cap you've got. So in a perfect world, it would be Goods, Doherty, and Boston going in there. So that's it, that's my team. Next episode is going to be the Rucks, which is interesting, especially with Leuenberger's problems this week. So we'll have a look at that, and yeah, follow the Dream Team Diaries there. You can, this will all be on iTunes, and tweet it, or you can have a look at the website. So check it out, and I'll see you in the next episode with the Rucks. Catch ya.